the group of researchers from Measuring the Co-op Difference Research Network, the sign you see right here, and they're working with Co-op Atlantic on the scorecard. We have Leslie Brown, Andrea Leclerc, Elizabeth Hicks, and Leo Leblanc. Two people will be talking, which is Elizabeth Hicks and Leo Leblanc. Leo is from the Co-op Atlantic organization, and Elizabeth Hicks is from Mount Mason University. And then we have Russ Christianson talking about, from Ontario Cooperative Association, talking about the Cooperative Sustainability Scorecard with Ontario's natural food co-ops. And the last one will be Marie-Paule Robichaud from Saint-Océan, talking about sustainability engagement tools in Quebec. I will just, before I have Elizabeth come up here, give you a quick heads up. We are going to be launching a social economy book during lunch hour that came out of the social economy cura in the Atlantic provinces. And I sent the pamphlet around, but the launch will happen during lunch. Thank you.
Morning. So as Sonia just mentioned, I'm going to be talking a little bit more. You've heard some of you. Oh, yes, thank you. Okay. So some of you were here earlier this morning, and Leslie Brown introduced the scorecard. Right now, myself and Leo Leblanc from Co-op Atlantic, we're going to tell you a little bit more about the scorecard and its development, where we are today. Okay, we want to thank our main partners in this process. And so we'll be talking a little bit about the purpose of the tool, looking at the content. I'll give you a short demo of the tool. And then Leo will talk about how we rolled out the tool and how the importance to Co-op Atlantic and our next steps. Okay, so in designing this tool, really what we were trying to do is we wanted to get, I think there was talk this morning about the process of preparing the tool. It's not just the results that we're interested in, but the process is really important. So the idea was to engage the various stakeholders in the development of this tool, and so that a co-op could identify and assess its performance on its cooperative difference. It would inform it in terms of doing its planning, strategic planning, ongoing governance, and so forth. And also for them to recognize what is our impact, on community and the environment. And we talked a lot about demonstrating transparency and accountability, and of course this is very important for the members and other stakeholders too. And all of this, really, the hope is that this tool will help to foster greater resilience, innovation, sustainability of the co-ops that adopt this tool. The scorecard looks like this. I'm just going to bring it up in a moment and show you, I think maybe I'll do that now. So there's really the scorecard itself, which is this part here, is the main part of it. Along with that comes a couple of surveys, an employee survey, and a member-owner survey as well, and customer survey is included in that. Okay. Okay, the scorecard. We just made a few changes to what I was going to present here on the scorecard, so just bear with me for 1 second. Just to give you an idea of some of the kinds of questions we're asking in the scorecard. Okay. Just to show you a little bit. First of all, there's an area here where we're talking about priorities. That's the first step that the co-op would do, is that they would identify which of these practices are really important to them. And so that way it's very adaptable to each co-op's needs. They would then, there'd be various benchmarks provided. Some of them they would put in their own or might modify the benchmarks as their targets. They measure against those targets. These A, B's, and C's would be the indicators, things that would help them measure how well they are achieving that practice or engaging in that practice. So they would measure their results for these indicators. And based on that, they come to a decision as to what their score is. Okay, so how have they done in terms of engaging that practice full-heartedly by the co-op? So that's the process. You'll see some of these principles are in gray. Those are what we call our basic principles. These are the ones that we think that most co-ops should be engaging in these practices. And then we have some in this sort of orange color. Basically, these are referred to as our associative practices that allow the co-op that want to adopt additional practices, they want to get deeper into that area, then these are ones that they might choose to adopt. So I just wanted to bring your attention to a few of these. One was, for example, the co-op has a recruitment process that ensures membership growth. So the first question was just, well, yes or no, they have a process or not. How many new members have they recruited? What is the percentage of sales made to non-members? What is the percentage of inactive members that have become active over the previous year? So those would be a few of the indicators that would help us decide how well we have engaged that particular practice. And if we want to drill down, we would then look at some of these associated practices that go along with that. I'm just going to go down to a couple others. Watch my time here because we've just chosen a few and they may take a little longer than we want. 6. Here's another one. Compliance with the bylaws. We want to see, okay, our co-op boards complying with the bylaws. They all should be, but are they? And so again, we have a number of indicators to help them decide whether they're complying with that very basic practice as well. We have the co-op board has a code of conduct, so that was felt to be very important. And again, things like the indicators might be, well, how often do they review this code of conduct? Does it include a conflict of interest guidelines? Do board agendas include a call for anyone in conflict of interest in relation to any of the agenda items? So again, these help us understand to what extent their practice of having a code of conduct is really ingrained into the cooperative. 9, we can see under democratic board elections, we have the co-op as the nomination process that ensures enough candidates for the competitive board elections. So again, a number of indicators to indicate whether or not they have, what process they're going through to make sure that they do have enough members. Under strategic planning, under the same co-op principle, we have the co-op board and manager develop a strategic plan. So yes or no, and again we have associated practices, a number of them that go along with that they might choose to adopt as well. Just giving you a sampling of them. The co-op board actively encourages informal forms of member participation, might be another practice that would be a good one. And again, some of the indicators, the number of members who have participated in strategic planning and policy development over the year, number of employees who have participated, number of members involved in other initiatives outside formal committees and so forth. So again, that would be indicators of that particular practice. And one more here, I just want to share. Under Principle 3, member economic participation, we have members participate in the financing of their organization with a significant equity position in the co-op relative to its life cycle. So kinds of things like member equity as a percentage of total assets, percentage of members with fully paid up share capital, percentage increase, decrease in share capital, and whether they encourage their members to fully pay their share capital. So again, some more indicators of that. So that's just a little bit of sampling of some of the principles we have. I guess while I'm here, I'll just also show you a little bit about this is the environment section of the scorecard. And I've put in some false numbers, just numbers here, just to show you how it works. So for example, in this one under the environment, the governance part, we have the co-op as a written environmental policy. We identified that as a high priority. And based on the indicators, we think we're doing pretty well. So we look at the indicators compared to our benchmarks, and we say, you know what, we're going to give ourselves a high score of 5 in that. They're also, because it's a high score of 5, very important to us, we also decided to do both of the associated practices. So it incorporates green procurement policies and objectives. In that case, we haven't given ourselves as high a score of 4 out of 5. We have the co-op has an environmental committee. Again here, based on our measures compared to our benchmarks, we've only given ourselves a 3 out of 5. You'll notice these little, I just want to bring up these little ladybugs. This is something that lets the co-op know that Co-op Atlantic also has a Ladybug Award, and so these particular practices tie into them applying for that Ladybug Award. Okay, once they've done that, the scorecard will automatically take those numbers that we've given ourselves, and will give us a summary score. So just looking down to the environment section, again we have the summary scorecard. You'll see we have a section for the co-op principles, broken down to each principle and some subcategories in those principles. We get a score for just the basic practices. And then we also get a score for basic practices plus any associated practices that we've chosen to adopt. Okay, and that will give us a basic score. If you get 100, it means that, you know what, you've fully engaged in all the basic practices, and those associated practices that you've chosen to adopt. So we get scores for each of those categories, as well as for the co-op principles as a whole. You'll also notice that there's an area to celebrate. Those would be the practices that we identified as high priorities and we did really well in. So it automatically comes up and tells us, okay, this is the areas we're going to celebrate. And then it also tells us the areas that were of a high priority but we scored low in. These are areas that we're going to have to concentrate and improve on for the future. And at the very end, how are we doing? Okay. At the very end of the scorecard, you'll see there's also a summary total. So in this particular case, I did very few of the practices, and maybe that's what the particular co-op wants to do to start with. So I got only 26 out of 250 for 10.4% on the basic. And with the basic and associated that I chose to do, I ended up with an 18.6%. So that's okay too, because a co-op might decide to only do a little bit to start with, but they can then compare it as they start to use more and more of the scorecard that would like to see that percentage grow over time, and also would allow the co-op to compare itself with other co-ops in the group, because we'll amalgamate that information. So I can skip over these rather quickly because I took you right to the scorecard. So just to show you that there are the 4 themes in the scorecard. This is our total package, the scorecard being the major part. And we have the 4 themes, the triple bottom line, economic, social, environment, as well as the 7 co-op principles in there. And so we think that including the co-op principles is rather, not all tools include that for co-ops. We thought it was really important to set those out as well. Oh, I'm not in the full screen here, but. F5.
Well, F5 you're going to start at the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Well, then you can go fast. Just go F5.
Oh, okay. Go F5? Okay.
Yeah, and go fast on the arrow.
And go back. Okay.
Go back and do it. Yeah.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so then we looked at the summary scorecards and the fact that it does break it down by theme, by category within those themes and the whole, and identified the areas to celebrate and improve. It's a very flexible tool that we have here, so that's the idea too, that the co-op, I guess I might go over. The co-op can choose to do any part of the tool. They can choose to do one theme if they want. They can choose to do all the themes and maybe all the basic practices. Or they can choose any combination of practices within this so that it meets their particular needs. And I'm just going to turn it over to Leo at this point.
I got a few comments that are not in the presentation. I think that's okay. When I first started thinking about this whole process, it got inspired by an article that Russ had written in an article somewhere, and he had focused on the financial side and on the environmental side. So we've been going through a change in CEO. And we had a person who was very businesslike for a period of time and changed the organization radically. It changed especially our retail area managers and the work that they were doing with our boards, with our various stores, because some of our stores have management agreement, so we have area managers that go out and try to help. And they were focusing on operations, and they weren't focusing on governance. So when I saw Russ's article, I went back to my staff and I said, this is really, really good. Now, how can we do that in other areas to reinforce the cooperative side, the governance side, the principles, the values, and how we actually roll out our governance? So it wasn't easy because these people taught that they had the best model in place. They do it like the Sobeys and the Leblancs and our competition do it. And worry about operations because operations need attention. So it was a real chore to go back and say, no, we're going to dismantle things, we're going to do things differently, and we're going to get our cooperatives to participate in putting this together. So we went out and we got our cooperatives to actually look at the practices that we have put together and change them to the way that they would like them applied. So then we developed our model. We had to go back, get management's approval, get the area managers together, get every section of the organization, get the Board of Co-op Atlantic, get the executive management to agree to it, and then it was okay to roll it out. But it wasn't an easy process. Some of the benefits, we want to be best practices in cooperative management is what we're trying to do. And then there's these other benefits that come from it. So help co-ops compete with the big chains, help the board of a new co-op become familiar with the co-op model, help co-ops self-evaluate and take action on some of the things that need to change, identify areas where attention is needed, identify areas to improve, create awareness on how co-op is different, engage the board, and enhance the ability to work as a team and work with the membership as well. And then a practical tool for showing meaningful results and comparing results. We have cooperatives that do a very, very good job in the areas of cooperative management, cooperative governance, and they can teach others. And this tool will demonstrate the strength that they have in rolling out these various principles and the values that we have in cooperation, and also the financial side and the economic and the financial, economic, social, and environmental side. So the tool, it needed to be user-friendly. People needed to have the time required to do the tool, so we decided we would chunk it up in little pieces, and they could do parts of it at various meetings that they had. And we need to have manager buy-in, or it's not going to work, so we spent a lot of time working with the managers, showing this at some of their conferences, so they could get used to it and understand it wasn't threatening to them, it was just a different way, and we needed to deal with governance, the governance side. And we needed to find a way to encourage co-ops to participate. And certainly we needed support and resources. We needed support from the organization, and we needed support, resources to make sure that happens, and then reaching out with surveys of staff and surveys from the owner members to give feedback to the organization on how well we're doing in each of these areas. So we got some very good comments from the participants. Can't wait to see this tool in progress. A very good, very logical program, easy to use. So we spent a lot of time working in the various regions so that people would be familiar and using it. Now we brought them all to Moncton and had some workshops with them for a full day. So what's next? Well, we need to roll this out to our co-ops. We got to make them use the tool. We got to finalize the surveys and roll those out. Make sure that there's a good instruction guide so that it's user-friendly and they can work their way through it themselves. And also have people available to them if they've got some questions. And so investigate how we can share information and then see if these are really meaningful to good results, because some of our co-ops that have good results have all these things in practice. So it is going to be revealing. So for more information, we have a host of people that work with us, researchers that I want to thank, Leslie Brown, Elizabeth Hicks, and Andre Leclerc, which were the main people that worked with us. They worked for 2 years tirelessly, and we had a lot of changes that had to be made. They were very patient, and we're now working on an internet application that is going to be simple to use and collate and manage our results. Thank you.
The measure. as well as the processes. Like, what are the different, decision-making, governance processes, etc., that you're going through that are recognized, as they were saying at Co-op Atlantic, as best practices or good practices to follow, and sharing those with other co-ops. So the economic measures, this just summarizes, we'll go down to look at the different aspects of the scorecard, but this summarizes how many of the recommended practices, for example, they're doing. And I wanted to give people in each area just a simple percentage. People understand percentages, right? Because we all grow up going to school and learning what percentages are and how well you're doing. So it's kind of a report card in that way. But I wanted to kind of summarize the whole thing in just a few numbers so that people can say, well, how are we doing on that? So I know if people in the earlier presentation this morning, Peter Huff was showing their bar graphs. That's another way to express it. But it's just easy to understand. So for this particular example, 62%. So that's okay, right? I mean, they're not failing, but they could do better. And then the idea is to, I really love that idea, and I would add it to my scorecard. That idea of celebrating the things they're doing well, that's a fantastic idea. I think you should add that to the, if you end up using the scorecard. But I also wanted to identify, okay, well, what areas do we want to improve on? You can pick one, or you can pick two, or maybe you're already really good in that area, so go to another area and pick one or two things. There's always room for improvement. The social measures, again, we'll get in, I'll show you, drill down to show you what those look like. So I've got this formatted so that people can just print it on double-sided, and that's why there's the title here again. And then the environmental measures. So for this particular example, you can see the scores are all, in the early 60s, which is sort of, okay, well, you're doing okay, at least you're doing something, right? And you can do better. So let's look at the economic. So here's sort of minimum recommended practices. And again, for emerging co-ops, a lot of them don't even know this stuff, right? Because maybe they've never run a business before. They don't have an accountant who's working with them. Hopefully they do have a bookkeeper. I mean, it's surprising when you see how many even emerging co-ops, startup co-ops don't even have a bookkeeper that's doing things properly. So, there's some real basics around the economic or financial stuff that needs to be done. Like lots of small businesses, they may not have a budget for the year. So all those kinds of things, just they need to focus on some of those practices. And then this is all about financial literacy. So teaching people in the cooperatives what's a financial ratio? What's a current ratio? I mean, who cares what the percentage of staff cost as a percentage of total sales is? Well, these are all benchmarks in the industry that are used. And one of the great things that Co-op Works, I think it's called Co-op Works, still in the United States, they have aggregated data for all the food co-ops across the United States. Co-op metrics, right? That's what it's called. And, as they add more to it, they can slice it by size of cooperative, so you can get some benchmarks for financial performance that then you could put in this scorecard based on the size of your co-op. Because those co-ops are going to be very similar to how they're operating in Canada too. We don't have a tool like that in Canada. We have Stats Canada's small business profiles, which, I mean, some of them are okay, but most of them they're not accurate enough.
And I think these are amazing examples of our action research in the cooperative community. So very, very informative and for me anyway. One question is, these are incredible tools for cooperatives to develop their own business strategies and cooperative advantage. How can these tools be used for communicating the cooperative advantage to policymakers? And is it used that way?
I guess once you've completed this particular exercise, you would have all the information you need to develop a corporate social responsibility report. And when your federation and you do the aggregate for all your members, that is a powerful tool to bring to your government and say, here's what we're doing together.
Yeah, I think it's the aggregation that's really important. So the challenge is to get the cooperatives to actually do it, right? And then to do it consistently over years and to continue to show progress, because you know, they have to show the commitment to actually this triple bottom line. And we have to try and measure that, then aggregate it, and then take it to the policy, you know, government lobby, etc., to hopefully influence practices and regulations that will be favorable towards cooperatives. Because I can tell you in Ontario, because that's mostly where I work, we have, I would say we suffer from like neglect. The cooperative sector suffers from neglect from the provincial government. They support lots of private business development, etc., but they really do very little, if anything, for cooperatives. And what they always say to us is, well, you can access those existing programs as a cooperative just like any other business, but it's not really that simple. And in fact, because cooperatives do bring a lot more to the table in terms of societal benefits, there should be special support for that.
Je crois que le contexte québécois est particulier, étant donné qu'on a plusieurs fédérations sectorielles et on a aussi une direction des coopératives très forte qui nous appuie aussi en développement durable. Donc on a...
Je suis aussi président de la Fédération des coopératives funéraires du Québec. Et comme Marie-Paule a mentionné, notre fédération a été un des leaders au Québec dans
Saskatchewan. I appreciate it very much the progress which we have made together and the way you explained it to us. It's quite uplifting and enlightening. But I came from a session where we talked about how to differentiate cooperative social responsibility from corporate social responsibility. And I challenge us all to think about how to differentiate Walmart's sustainable development from the co-op movement's sustainable development. And I think what distinguishes it partly would be the depth and the breadth of the undertaking, the intensity of the undertaking, the integrated nature of the undertaking, the linking of a triple top line. Even the gurus of management are talking about triple top rather than triple bottom line, from the beginning in the strategic plan. But it seems to me also, I will realize the difference, or I'll recognize the difference, when I hear co-ops talking about decisions to stop making certain things, to stop producing certain things, to stop selling certain things. Because no matter how carefully and cleanly and efficiently we make them and move them and sell them, they probably don't belong in the inventory. They probably don't belong in the mix. There are some fundamental ecological contradictions, and they certainly aren't consistent with sustainable consumption as well as sustainable production. And I think that one of the ways co-ops will distinguish themselves, this is the finishing idea, it's a question, but it's a comment with a question wrapped around it. I'm wondering whether really what will distinguish co-ops is their devotion to creating knowledgeable consumers, to make real choices, and knowledgeable frontline workers, and knowledgeable managers, and so on, who will be able to develop that knowledge and have the kind of frameworks which allow them to ask the right critical questions. Because it's an old slogan that I still remember, that the worst pollution of all is bad ideas. And many of us go at building a house or figuring out how to clothe ourselves or to eat or transport with a slew of ideas which are, at best, they represent a certain de-skilling, a very big gap between what we know and what we need to know to make good choices. And I think this is what co-ops can do much more than corporations, because fundamentally they're not about selling us more stuff. Question?
Yeah. I guess if we measure the economic, the social, and ecological results that we obtain in our organizations, it's the first step. And other organizations are already doing it, and some of them are doing it very well. And we have to decide for ourselves what we want to do in those three major areas. But there's one thing, one particular area that other organizations don't have, and it's this whole focus on our principles and on our values. And you've picked up on one principle, which is education. We need to educate our leaders, our managers, our staff, and our members. And they will make the decisions, the right decisions, if we provide them with the appropriate information and educate them on how important these decisions are for them and the community. And it's always important that they are the ones that are in control and they make those decisions. And that's why we focused on the principles and the values,